To me, manifesting is literally intention, it's focus. So when I put an intention and a clarity and a focus around something that I want, the more that I do that, the more that all of that grows and grows and grows. What people don't realize is that if you allow the dream to exist in your mind first instead of shutting it down, and you know how to train your thinking so that it isn't shutting it down and it's actually feeding it, then guess what? You speed up that whole timeline. I'm going to apply obsession. I'm going to apply my thoughts. I'm going to apply how I talk about it. I'm going to ask myself every day, what's one thing I can do to get closer to it? And boom, you've just shortened the timeline from maybe 5-10 years to a year.
If you have an abundance mindset, an abundance-based daily practice, an abundance-based philosophy, then you know that everything that does come to you, you're going to find a way to compound and give.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? And I think that's the reframing that I see a lot of folks missing. Guys, let me welcome my good friend, Sarah Centrella. What is going on, girlfriend?
Oh, I'm so excited for this conversation. You know I love you.
Back at you, girl. Well, check this out. So one of the things I love most about you is because you do what I think a lot of people struggle to do. And that is get yourself to a place where it doesn't matter what the adversity is, doesn't matter what the setback is, doesn't matter what's thrown at you. You find a way to maneuver it, model it, and use it for your benefit and your good. And as a result, you become uber successful. Several, best-selling books, uber successful with elite clientele and mindset and manifestation. I'm curious to know from your perspective, and there's so many subjects I want to talk to you about, but I'll probably hop around a little bit. But the audience will get the benefit, I promise. This term manifestation, what do people get right about it, and what do people get wrong about it?
Oh, that's such a good question, because to be quite honest, I kind of came to that word kicking and screaming. I didn't resonate with it. When I started this whole process, my thing happened when my world exploded and I had like this big rock bottom moment where I lost everything and I had to rebuild my life. And I didn't know anything about personal development. I didn't know anything about manifesting, but I had heard Oprah say that if what you focus on becomes your reality. And of course, I'd watched her vision board show a long time ago. And what can it hurt? Like I'm already at the bottom. I've already lost everything. And so that kind of started my own journey. And I didn't know, like I said, anything beyond that. But the more I kind of got into it and the more my board started manifesting and it started changing my life, the more I was like poking my head out, going, hey, what's out there? Maybe I could learn a little more. Maybe I could get a little better because, wow, this is really working.
Yeah.
And when I did, I just did not resonate with anything that was out there at the time. I think it has changed a lot over the last, 5, maybe even 10 years. But back then it was only like new age stuff. It was only The Secret. You know what I mean? And I was like, that does not speak my language. I don't even know what they're talking about. Like, what is happening right now?
Yes.
And so for a long time, honestly, I'm big on making up my own words anyway.
Me too.
Because to me, words are super predictive. And so what you're seeing behind me is my future board. And I wrote a whole book about future boards and why it's not a vision board, because to me, it's my future. It's not just a dream. It's not just a vision. Like, it's really important. So I think there's one of the things I'm up against on a regular basis, especially if I'm doing a keynote in a large room, is that half the audience will immediately tune out just by hearing the word manifesting. They're like, oh God, she means she's going to sit there like in, prayer mode and like talk to the universe and, all of a sudden she's going to win the lottery and be a millionaire. And it couldn't be farther from the truth in my mind.
Yeah.
To me, manifesting is literally intention, it's focus. So when I put an intention and a clarity and a focus around something that I want, the more that I do that, the more that all of that grows and grows and grows. And everyone listening to this knows that for a fact, because that's how you've gotten anything you ever cared about in your life. The more you thought about it, the more you became obsessed about it, the more you started seeing it everywhere, the more people started having random conversations about it. So to me, that is the process of manifesting. It's the process of taking something that starts as a thought, as all of our dreams, wants, and wishes do, and turning it into a real life experience where I could take a picture because I'm in that moment. I'm living it for real. And we've all done it. I think if we can get past kind of some of our preconceived notions and what you might think that word or some of these other words about creating your future might mean to you,
Yeah.
holy cow, then you could just duplicate a recipe that has already worked for you. Anything
Mhm.
you've ever gotten in your life, you've used this process with. So like, why wouldn't you want to know how to rinse and repeat it?
Right. Well, and a lot of things, it's funny. As a person of faith, I got a lot of people in the Christian community that kind of follow the show, and
Yep.
I got a lot of folks that don't, that aren't faith, that aren't, that's not their level of faith or whatever. But in the grand scheme of things, we can all agree on that we believe manifesting is nothing more than focus, as you mentioned before, multiplied by faith
Yep.
with the power of intention.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
And I always say, to me, whatever your faith is, like whatever is the basis of your faith, if it's yourself, if it's God, if it's whatever religion you subscribe to, if it's the universe, all of that to me is the same because it requires faith, right? It requires turning over the piece of the equation that we don't control, which is time and opportunity. Like,
Yeah.
you could do everything under the sun, and those two elements are always going to be outside your control. But that's where your faith brings it closer to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's where faith comes in and kind of like magically closes the gap for you a bit. So to me, you could easily in your mind, if those words are hard to get over, just get rid of them and replace them with faith, replace them with a word that resonates with you, because the process is still really the same. Honestly, you're right.
Yeah, 100%. And I was actually thinking too that faith in many respects determines belief, and belief determines whether or not your focus will actually flow.
Right.
So if you say, I'm going to focus on, I know one of the things that you did when you launched your book is you went on kind of like a manifestation spree and got to enjoy some private travel and, some cool stuff like that. But even if you wanted to, let's say it's on your future board behind you, right? This item is on your future board. If you don't believe it's possible, it doesn't matter how much you look at the photo, it's not going to happen. But if you line that focus up with the vision, if you will, the future piece that's directly in front of you, I'm going to achieve this one day.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's today or tomorrow, next week or the next month or a year from now, it's going to happen. There's a certain level of certainty that I think that kind of backflows into the faith belief component that makes it possible.
Absolutely. And I think most people actually assume you have to believe first. Yeah. In other words, I have to believe that I will be able to experience these crazy once in a lifetime dreams that I only see people on TV doing, or only see people on Instagram doing, or whatever my personal dream is, before I can put it out into the world, into the universe, on a board, whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And that's actually, in my opinion, not the case. Like, belief comes from what we tell ourselves, bottom line. Yeah. So if what I'm telling myself all the time is I'm unworthy, other people are better than me, someone else can do it better, that's never going to happen to me, I'm not lucky, blah, blah, blah. And guess what? We all have that voice very actively in our head. But if we let that voice tell us what's possible and tell us who we are, then we're never going to cross that threshold. And in order to live a manifestation or to live that dream that you've put out into the world, you do have to eventually cross the line. You have to go from that inner doubt, that inner skeptic, to that place where you're like, 100%, I'm going to die on this hill. Nothing is coming between me and this moment or this thing that I want. But I think most people hang out on the sidelines and they're waiting for that lightning bolt to hit them and say, this is what you want. This is how you get it. Now you're inspired enough to go get it. And it does not work that way. It doesn't have to work that way. I think people get very confused because if they've had one singular dream, maybe in their life that they were super focused on, it did feel that way. But the crazy thing is they probably, like, if they reflect back, they probably remember that process starting honestly where the action took place, right? Or they decided to go to grad school, or they decided to leave the job and start the business on the side or whatever. Like, that's probably where their brain is like, oh, this was your starting point. This was your beginning. I will bet money, I'll bet everything I have that whole idea came years and years and years and years before that.
100%.
And so what people don't realize is that if you allow the dream to exist in your mind first, instead of shutting it down, and you know how to train your thinking, so that it isn't shutting it down and it's actually feeding it and growing it like a little seed, then guess what? You speed up that whole timeline 10 times. You're not waiting for it to kind of naturally get a little momentum, naturally turn your desire on, you're fast forwarding through all of that. And you're saying, I want this, and I'm going to apply obsession. I'm going to apply my thoughts. I'm going to apply how I talk about it. I'm going to apply my focus. I'm going to ask myself every day, what's one thing I can do to get closer to it? And boom, you've just shortened the timeline from maybe 5-10 years to a year.
Yes.
So it's absolutely something that you can teach yourself how to do. And you don't have to sit on the outside and wait till you feel it or believe it or want it or think it's possible. You can train yourself to think that it's possible. And boom, then it's limitless, right?
Let's go.
It's just plug and play.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the other thing too, I was thinking of too is, at the early onset of ever becoming or stewarding any level of wealth, right? Growing up in an environment, not a whole lot of overflow, a lot of lack, a lot of just getting by, a lot of getting creative just to get by, right? All this kind of stuff. I remember there being several life lies that were kind of like permeating through the bloodline, so to speak. And one of those that was wealth was evil. So one of the roadblocks that I had to overcome myself on this journey is once I started stewarding any level of wealth. You know, it's when I look at wealth as anytime your health, your physical ability to have resource and overflow, and your relationships are incredibly strong, right? When I started looking at that from a holistic level, I started to realize that I was holding myself back in terms of actually receiving and stewarding higher levels of wealth due to a lie that had been kind of permeated through the family. Because when I was a kid, it was like wealthy people were evil. They got to where they got by lying, cheating, stealing, and whatever. And then poor people were somehow, honorable and whatever. However, my experience is that anytime we had lack, we went to the wealthiest person we knew for a safety net. Right. So it really it really screwed with my head about what is wealth? Why is it okay to be wealthy? And then I realized that part of being wealthy is just making you more of what you already are. So if you're generous and kind-hearted and good-hearted, you do a lot of great things, and then if you're not, you become the version of that. That's been, kind of multiplied. So I say all that as a point of reference to maybe get your thoughts on how someone can maybe figure out what their life lie is, and maybe how that life lie is actually holding them back in the process.
There's so many. I think all of us have, I call them blocks. And I've found that the two biggest blocks are money, lack beliefs around money, and worthiness. And a lot of times they show up in totally different packages. And so you could go through your whole life and be in total denial and say, I 100% believe I'm worthy. I 100% love money, but you don't have any and nothing is working. And, the two are not connecting. The belief and the reality aren't the same. Right. And so there's this part where it's really frustrating because on a conscious level, you're like, but I'm telling myself all the time, all these things, like I am worthy, I'm good at this, blah, blah, blah. And why don't I feel that way? And why am I still self-sabotaging success? And I think we are so deeply embedded with subconscious beliefs going back to all the way from our childhood. And there's, that's, we all know that's been around for a very long time. But I think identifying what those are can be pretty tricky and can be hard. And I grew up similar to you, as I grew up, dirt poor. Oddly enough, it was a choice on my parents' side. They thought they were being the martyrs, right? Being the good people and left their well-to-do families. And we're like, we're going to be the good ones. And we were eating out of trash cans and I was homeless till I was 9 years old. Mm-hmm. So I'm not quite sure how that equaled us being the good guys. But, that just goes to show you how wrong that belief can be, right?
I don't mean to cut you off, but I just had this interesting epiphany there. Do you think it's possible that in those specific circumstances that maybe your parents were using that as a tool to make themselves feel better about the situation you guys were in?
Oh, for sure. And I think this might be a little bit tough or tricky to say, but I think there definitely are some belief systems, some religious belief systems, and there were in my childhood for sure. That was very kind of offshoot off the norm. Sure. That really fed that, or maybe like you said, my parents like took that little nugget and were like, "Oh, I'm going to feed this to my kids so that they don't feel like, we're doing this for the wrong reasons." And so I had all that to overcome. I definitely had that belief system of the wealthy are Satan. Let's be honest. I mean, they were like as bad as you get. They represented everything evil and horrible in the world, but then also true lack. Like everything around me was lack, and seeing, my dad work 4 jobs and barely feed us. And so there was all of this subconscious messaging that I was living out as an adult over and over and over again. And it took me a long time to unwind that and to say, hey, maybe money doesn't have to be hard. Maybe I don't have to work twice as hard as everybody else to make half as much. Like that's not a great belief to continue going around with. And I had to kind of see that. And then I had to rewire it. And that is the big piece I think that a lot of people are missing. They might know that some of these beliefs are holding them back, but they don't know what to do with them necessarily. And so I started very consciously, very awarely telling myself a new story, saying, money is easy. Money flows to me easily. I'm a good steward of what I have. So what I have grows. I bless others with what I have. And really started changing how I thought about money and the role of in my life and what it can do for my family and how I can change those beliefs and make sure that my kids don't have those beliefs in the first place. That was very important to me. I did not want to pass that generational belief on to them. And wanted to teach them how abundance works and how the other side of that works. And I think for anyone who is hung up on some of those old wired beliefs, let's just do something super, super rational right now. Okay. Think of a time where you got a surprise check. You got a Christmas bonus that was double what you thought it was. You got, whatever it was. We've all had that. Trust me. If you look through your life, you've had it multiple times.
Everybody got it during COVID for sure.
Exactly. You got money that you weren't expecting or was more than you expected. Was that the worst day of your life?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's all you have to do to prove to yourself, how could this thing be so bad if on that day you felt so amazing? You felt free. You felt like you could take a big breath. You felt like you wanted to celebrate with your family. You felt like you wanted to do something nice for someone. You wanted to buy the Starbucks for the car behind you. Like, those little things I think really help when you can put it into reality perspective and say, wow, this belief was really not serving me. And it's a lie. It is not true.
That's right.
Right. And so I can lean in on the other side if I choose to.
Yeah. Well, money has no identity, but it does have a function. And that took a while for me to fully appreciate and understand. I'll give you an example. That same, we'll call it that same check for $600 or whatever during COVID. A lot of folks got, some got a little more, some got a little less, but let's say the average is 600. Some went out and bought a TV.
Right.
Some went out and paid down their debt. Some went out and invested it. That same seed, if you will, for some became 3 times more, 4 times more, 10 times more. For others, it was immediately less, as if it never occurred to begin with. Right? Some went out and became super generous. I know that myself and a few others gave ours away to people that needed it more than we did. Because I wasn't supposed to get one. I still got one anyway. So we chose to give it away. But I think it goes down to the perspective of what wealth and abundance can be. Because if you have an abundance mindset, an abundance-based daily practice, an abundance-based philosophy, then you know that everything that does come to you, you're going to find a way to compound and give.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's the reframing that I see a lot of folks missing.
And when you're in that space, if you've ever been in that space, even whether it's a day, an hour, however long, just that moment of just total relief where you're like, this feels really good. We know the difference, right? We know the difference between that and stress and worry and whatever the case is. So just from that standpoint alone, we all know that feeling better is good for our health.
Yeah.
People who are happier live longer, have better quality of life. So again, why am I fighting it so hard?
Yeah.
If you're holding on to a belief that isn't serving you and you really find yourself resistant to it, you need to ask why, and peel that onion down to the core And you'll probably come to some ridiculous thing someone said to you when you were 6 years old that makes no logical sense now. And you're just like,
Or 12.
what?
Yeah.
How has this thing been the thing that I was resistant to? But hey, it's okay. Let it go and lean in hard on the other side. Lean in hard to how good that feeling is when you're able to bless someone else. And I think once I did that, and I was really resistant for a very long time, I didn't even understand how much those beliefs sabotaged my success, because I also was very afraid of success because I thought I was going to wake up and be an asshole. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I really did. I was like, those two things go together. If you're, successful at whatever you do, you have to be a jerk to everybody. And I was like, that's not who I am. And it's so against what I believe. And I don't want to be that. So I was shutting down success on every front because I thought that too. So I had to work through that belief too and say, no, I get to choose every single day who I am.
Yeah.
Every single day I get to choose how I show up, the woman I want to be, how I want to interact, and what I want to do with what's given to me. That is always going to be my choice.
Yeah.
Unless I decide to tune out and float, which that's just not my personality. So I had to kind of get to this place where like I trusted myself. Said, okay, I know myself well enough that I know that I can hold myself accountable to do the work every day.
Yeah.
And do the practices that got me here every day.
Yeah.
And then I will show up as an expanded version of myself. And how can that not be a blessing?
It's always a blessing. If you, again, resource, doesn't matter what it is, high quality relationships. You and I are very blessed to be in some really, really cool circles with really, really amazing people that have done a lot of really cool things. And one of the things that I see that's a commonality between everybody is once you achieve any level, I'll say any level of success, okay? And success is in the eye of the beholder, whatever that means to you. For some reason, achieving the next level is slightly easier, and then slightly easier, and then slightly easier. And so you don't wake up, in that area of stress. You don't wake up in stress.
Right.
Because you don't wake up in stress because your needs are met, you actually function at a higher level, which actually allows it to make it easier for you to bring these other things in your life.
Right.
And it's been interesting to me because as I pull back the curtain on all the years that I've lived and, all the dumb stuff that I've done and all the good stuff that I've done and all the decisions in between, right? I've discovered that there's a battle to get to a place of relative abundance. And then after that, abundance compounds abundance.
So true. So true. And I think when you've grown up hard, and maybe if you're a natural born, I say hustler, people have bad connotations with that. But that to me just means I'm going to get out and figure it out. I'm going to get up tomorrow and if I got a no or a roadblock, I'm going to try something new the next day. I'm not going to sit down and just kind of wait for my life to happen to me. So I think whether that comes from a place of having to do that because of how you're raised, or you're luckily genetically coded with that, I think that you can get to this place where if you don't have that, and I'm curious to see if this happened to you, because when you reach those first levels of success and you don't have that have to hustle as much as you did to get where you were at, there can be a little bit of fear in that as well, right? I mean, I had always thought that was my magic sauce.
Yeah.
Like, that was my magic sauce. If I was like pushed into a corner, ooh, you should put your money on me because I'm going to find a way out of that corner, right?
Yeah.
So as soon as I started getting in places where I didn't have the corners, I was like, what's wrong? Like, and so I would start sabotaging, right? I would start setting up things so that I would get myself back in that corner, and started seeing like, whoa, these roller coaster rides are not fun. How do I get off this ride? But it's interesting how a lot of times like that can almost be harder to adjust to being in the space of expansion and being in the space of abundance when you've programmed yourself to thrive in a different situation. I'm curious to see if that was
So what's crazy is my journey was interesting in that on the way, quote unquote, up, or on the way, I would say not up but out.
Yeah.
Right. On the way out of my former existence into the new one and the different levels in between. First of all, I had to let go of the mentality of I'll show you.
Mm.
Tell me I can't do it. I'll show you.
Ooh, that was my
Watch me.
motivator.
Watch me. Watch me work, kind of thing. Because, that served me in the hustle phase, but didn't serve me in the legacy phase.
Exactly.
Right. So I had to let that go. The next one is once I had that kind of dealt with, was dealing with, and I think every person that generates high levels of income and various levels of success will go through this phase personally, based on everything I've seen, which is the greed phase. Okay. So you have to face yourself, all these promises. Like let's say I'm watching this 15 years ago. Like I'm watching this conversation. I'm clawing my way out. I'm making progress. I get to a place of stability. I have some extra flow and resources at my disposal. What do I do with it? When the entire time from before, I was like, no, I'm going to be generous. I'm going to help people. I'm going to change the world. I'm going to do all this kind of stuff. I'm not going to go out. Those other people are just buying stuff. That's wrong. Don't they know there are people that are hungry over here, kind of thing?
Yep.
Like, and then you get to that place and you're like, everybody, their brother is wanting you invest in their thing or have you donate to their thing. You start to feel used,
Yeah.
or seen as a resource, some
Yep.
kind of like ATM machine. Then you have to look at it and say, well, then that kind of makes you want to stiff arm them. You're like,
Yeah.
well, this is why people don't give money. And then, it's kind of
Exactly.
like,
Yeah.
so there's this whole dichotomy around mindset and abundance and things like that. And what I had to do specifically is I had to face the limiting belief of I'll show you, the next limiting belief of I can choose to be greedy or not greedy. In other words, how much am I going to hold my standard that I said I was going to create?
Yeah.
Right? That frame of reference. And I think the third one was kind of what you mentioned, which is this understanding of letting go. Most people don't understand that you don't receive money with a clenched fist. It has to be an open hand.
Exactly.
Right. And I think your heart, your soul, your mentality, all of that has to be an open hand.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I would have been, when I was younger, it would have been blown my mind to be in the circles and the rooms that I'm in now then and watch these people operate, because what I thought they were doing when no one was looking
Yeah.
is the polar opposite of what they're actually doing. And some of the people that, mutual friends that we have and other relationships and circles, everybody's giving.
Yeah.
Everybody's loving on people. Everybody's feeding people. Everybody's clothing
Yep.
people. Everybody's and granted,
Yeah.
still people in the economy today saying rich or evil,
Yeah.
rich or evil, rich or evil. But then you give that person a chance to be rich or not be rich, and they're going to choose to be rich.
Exactly. And it's just crazy to me, because when you think about it again from a logical perspective, if I am in a position to help someone's career, if I am in a position to give a person a salary they've never gotten before,
Yeah.
or to hire someone who would not have the dream job that maybe I'm providing for them, how is that a bad thing? It just
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. And I think, a lot, if any of that kind of angst is in anyone listening, it's first of all common. I see it all the time. I see it in millionaires. I mean, I've worked for years and years and years with professional athletes who have millions and millions and millions of dollars and still deal with all of this stuff,
Yeah.
know? And so it's not really about what is in your bank account. It is about changing your mentality, addressing beliefs
Yeah.
that don't serve you, and then doing something about it, because
Yeah.
they are going to hold you back. They are going to sabotage you. And God forbid you don't want a belief to be so permeating that you lose everything you've worked really hard for,
I mean, think about the
that's not
people that
fun.
win. Think about the statistics on winning the lottery,
Yep,
not having the character to steward the wealth,
exactly.
and go through. When I say millions, I mean in some cases winning the lotteries of hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right. And
Right.
totally broke in 5 years.
Totally broke in 5 years, right? So,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a really interesting thing, which kind of leads me to my next point. And I know another thing that I really had to face hardcore, and I shared this with you a little off air, was I was, obviously invited to a private event. We had a lot of really success. I mean, everybody there had managed to achieve a very high level of success.
Right.
And a few of the people decided to leave the party because I feel like this is me talking.
Yeah,
I'm not speaking for them, because I'm seeing what was going on and what seemed to be going on in their hearts was very similar to what had gone on in my heart before.
That resistance, you can almost see it. You can feel
Exactly, right?
it. The energy. Yeah.
Was I felt like even though they had maintained and achieved massive levels of success, they felt like an imposter in the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know I felt like an imposter at times as a form of self-sabotage.
Right.
And I know this is like at your core and at your heart. So help me break down the imposter syndrome, because I feel like it's one of the largest lids that any of us have to break.
Oh, God, for sure. I mean, here's my thing with imposter syndrome. Number one, it's a super popular hashtaggy type thing that everyone wants to be like, I have it, therefore I can't do this, therefore that, so I think it is one of those really scary umbrellas to put yourself under, and definitely a label that if you've been using it, stop today. Because like I said, words hold crazy value.
Yep.
Everything that you are speaking into existence, whether you believe that is true or not. Doesn't matter if you believe it's true or not. Okay. So if you are speaking things like that into existence, then all you are doing is shutting down doors of opportunity, shutting down chances for you to be good at the thing, become an expert, get to that place where you have confidence. And I want to put it in a super realistic way, because that's just, as you probably already can tell, how my brain translates everything. So I'm out here this last week teaching my 2 16-year-old daughters how to drive. And they don't want to do it. And don't get me started on this whole generation who feels like they don't need to know how to drive a car, but they don't want to do it. There's no motivation really for them to do it. But I'm like, I'm not about to have daughters who don't know how to drive. Will not, right? Yeah. So we get out there every single day, and I tell them the only way to be a good driver. Yeah. The only way to be a good driver is to get behind the wheel and drive every single day in every situation, so that you know what to do in these situations. There's no fast track. There's no skipping this. There's no setting you can do online. It is only getting behind the wheel of the car till you get to that place where you feel like you are a great driver, right? Yeah. So of course they feel like imposter. I'm not a driver. What am I doing on the road? Why should I be here? And the same exact process applies to us with everything. Anytime you start something new, go all the way back to your first job at McDonald's when you were 16. Anytime you have ever started something new, any new job, walked into a room where you didn't know anyone, every human on this planet has felt that way. Yeah. That is just the way it is. That is our own embedded wiring to, I really feel like, teach us how to learn. Yeah. Right. And there are many people out there who will be like, well, learning is hard. Learning is uncomfortable. Learning doesn't feel good. So I'm going to sit here and watch everyone else learn.
And then bitch about it.
Exactly. You go to an ice skating rink, you have half the people on the outside watching everyone fall on their face, and you have half the people in there going in there falling on their face. Because guess what? How do you become an ice skater? You have to go fall on your face 10,000 times. Yeah. And that is all imposter syndrome is. We give it so much power. We give it so much weight. We let it dictate what we're doing or not doing, when all it is learning. Yeah. It is the process of learning that we have done since the day we learned to crawl.
Yeah. That's 1,000%. Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like you almost have to admit you feel imposter syndrome, but not succumb to it.
I think that we should, truthfully, instead label it, I am learning. Yeah. I am learning.
Yeah. I also think that maybe there's an element of, on top of it, this is something that I did. This is 5 or 6 years ago, before I started becoming a little more publicly known and stuff like that. And I remember telling myself this. I got a huge opportunity to support, at the time, a lot of A-list people in the thought leadership industry, right? That everybody looks up to and admires. And in this opportunity, I had to admit to myself that the reason I was in the room is because I was supposed to be in the room.
Exactly.
Yeah, I find that God, as a person of faith, God does not put you in rooms you're not supposed to be in.
Right.
Right. He may not put you at the head of the table, but if he puts you at the table, you're supposed to be at the table.
Exactly.
And in the process of learning.
Yeah. And in that room, you were learning.
Yeah.
Whether you were conscious about that or not, you were absorbing. You were like a sponge. You were watching someone do this, watching someone do that. You're thinking like, ooh, I want to do that. I want to be like that. Right. And so I think, to me, what's so dangerous about imposter syndrome is, number one, just at the base meaning of the word, it's I'm fake.
right? I am pretending to be something that I am not. So yeah, if you're going out there and you're completely lying about every single aspect of your life,
Yeah.
and you're people actually do this, paying to pretend like you're walking on a private jet and saying and putting up on social media, this is my private jet. Yeah. You got some serious freaking
I've
issues.
seen those clips
Okay.
of people faking. It's kind of funny.
Exactly. You got some issues, and that's called fraud. That's called a
Yeah.
lot of things, right? But for the average person to go out there and say, I'm an imposter, like, are you putting yourself in that category? I'm a fraud. I'm lying about my whole life. I'm lying about who I am. No. We want to separate ourselves from that. And I want to say, hey, I'm learning. I'm getting better every day. The more that I expose myself, the more that I try something, the better I'm going to get at it.
Yeah.
And I think that is the big kind of scary part behind the way that people use imposter syndrome right now, especially as a term, is like, well, I'm not the expert yet. And so, I just started my business, or I just started my thing, and I'm putting it out there, and I'm encouraging people to do these things. And I don't feel like I'm quite at that level yet, or I'm still learning. Maybe the quote I put out there today was really for me, low key, and here I am sounding like, and it's my personality, but I would just say, this is what I need to hear today. This is what I need to hear today. So anyone follows me, has followed me for any amount of time, they know that 9 out of 10 times, if you see a quote, if you see me talking about something, is because that was the reminder I needed today. It's because I'm holding myself accountable. So I think there's a lot of fear and a lot of shame about being open in the fact that, like, hey, this is something I am passionate about, and I'm kind of getting my sea legs on it a little bit. Like, I love this. I want to learn. We don't have to just wake up as a guru. You know what I mean? Like, the only way to be an expert is to get out there and rinse and repeat something so many times that you now know based on experience. But we don't get the experience through fast forwarding any of this. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the process of mastery, right? And I was just thinking, as you're kind of talking through this, it's like using the learning concept, which I think is brilliant, by the way, and truthful.
Yeah.
You're going to be an apprentice at some point in time if you're elevating yourself. Like you don't go from unknown to mastery. Right. Like you go from unknown, or I don't know anything about the subject matter, to, okay, I know a little bit about the subject matter. Okay, I'm applying this subject matter. Okay, I'm applying and emerging from my former self with this subject matter. Oh crap. I actually know what the heck I'm talking about and know what I'm doing. And I've been practicing this and putting in the reps, and you develop mastery. And one of the things I love about you is you're so stinking intentional. So stinking intentional with yourself and your clients. I know you got an elite immersion mastermind that you host every now and again. And it dumbfounds me that people will spend tens of thousands of dollars on college.
Right.
Never do anything with the degree, go into debt, and they won't spend $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 on themselves.
Right.
Where they're going to get a return.
A huge return. I mean, it blows my mind still to this day. I think there's in this industry, and I get why that's the case. There are a lot of people out there who, maybe saying that one thing and aren't, but do your homework, do your research. But I think if you invest in yourself, what you're going to be learning are skills and tools that we should have been taught in school, honestly. Like, I feel like the communication skills that you can learn, how to stand up for yourself, how to speak up for yourself, how to go after what you want.
Relational intelligence.
Yes. How to overcome adversity, like how to vision for the future, how to make goals that actually motivate you instead of demotivate you. All of these things. I mean, I wish they were teaching it in school, but they aren't. And so you can do one of two things. You can go through life and try and read every single book and listen to every single podcast and be the 1% that is applying what they're learning.
Yeah.
Learning
there's
in
an
ways.
application thing.
Yeah, exactly. Or you can fast track it the same way you do if you want to be in a fitness competition, you hire a trainer. It just, to me, the common sense piece of it is like, why wouldn't I want to get the skills that are proven that can get me where I want to go faster?
Yeah.
And I always want to be in those rooms that intimidate me. Back to your point.
Well, that goes back to the
I want to grow.
It's like, instead of being an imposter, be an educator, be a learner.
Yes. Yeah. And I always want to be like that. If I ever feel like, I always say, if you're the queen bee in your hive, you got a big problem.
Yeah.
You should I always want to put myself in a room where I'm like, wow, I'm the lowest man on the totem pole here. I got a lot to learn,
but I am grateful to be in this room and I'm going to make the most of this opportunity. Right.
Yeah.
And if I'm doing that for the rest of my life, then I'm always elevating myself.
Yeah.
I'm never kind of getting to that place that I'm complacent.
Well, look, I want to leave the audience hanging. Again, you've got a couple of different community groups that allow you to do a deep dive immersive process that I personally believe, I've watched you work, that can eliminate and or like help you like really get past imposter syndrome, get past self-sabotage, learn to dream again, learn to think again, become a strategical thinker rather than a tactical actor.
Yeah.
Like, give us a couple of the ways that people can stay connected with you and learn more about these programs. I highly endorse you. I've made that publicly known. I love you to death.
Love you to death.
Because you're one of a handful of folks that in this genre,
right,
that are very intentional about the results you want to give other people.
Thank you.
That's
all I care about. Yeah.
It's not a resource grab. It's how can I help you kind of thing. So talk to us a little bit about a couple of things you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. So Instagram is probably the best place to always kind of know what's going on and also get coaching. I mean, I coach in my reels all the time, in my captions all the time, putting the tips and tools that my clients are using out there all the time. And then I do have an elite mastermind, which is a small group mastermind. It opens up twice a year. That enrollment is coming up, so you can go apply for that as well. Ladies, I have a Bali retreat coming up in September, which I'm excited about. My little Eat, Pray, Love.
I wish I had longer here.
I know, right? So I love doing those. Travel is very important to me, so I try to do 1 or 2 of those a year. And then I still do offer private coaching when I have the ability to do that. So there's lots of resources. The 3 books that I have teach all of my tools. And I just want to thank you so much for being so genuine, for putting your heart out there and your truth out there and sharing your story. And you inspire me so much. And like I said, the genuineness is, we both know this is hard to come by sometimes. And I feel that soul connection.
It's an honor. And I know we both are called to and want to serve at scale.
Yeah, absolutely.
And leave a massive legacy behind us. And, I think I judge I will judge massive success when I've been Steve Byrick to as many people as I humanly possible. When one person can make a big difference. And that's another reason I believe in your work and everything you do. And you're so intentional and people need to know more about you and continue to work with you.
Thank you so much. I love this.
All right, girlfriend. Have another see you on the next one.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Stephen.
I hope you liked that video. And if you did, make sure you check out this next video right here.
We all know you're defined based on your last exit. You're defined, by society on what you have coming up next, right? Sure. And we can allow those identities to creep in, right? Okay, This is who I am as a professional or as an athlete, but who I am as a person is completely different.